Imagine standing before a mirror that reveals not just your reflection, but centuries of your ancestors' sins. Your body is collapsing in on itself, your mind flickers between confusion and despair, and you realize you're not dying because of age or illness, you're dying because your bloodline has been poisoned by generations of royal ambition. This isn't fiction. This was the life of Charles II of Spain, the final, broken product of 16 generations of inbreeding. But his story is just the beginning. Across continents and centuries, from ancient Egypt to imperial Spain, rulers sacrificed the health of their children in a brutal gamble to keep power in the family. These are their stories. This is the price of pure blood. The mirror doesn't lie. In it, Charles II of Spain sees the grotesque inheritance of centuries: a twisted spine, a jaw that won't close, a tongue too large to speak clearly. He is 38 years old in 1700, but his body feels centuries older. He cannot rule. He cannot reproduce. He can barely eat. And in his final days, he understands the truth: his suffering is not a curse, it's the culmination of his family's obsession with bloodline purity. The House of Habsburg began ruling Spain in 1516. Over the next 2 centuries, they engaged in a systematic inbreeding campaign. Of 11 royal marriages between 1450 and 1661, 9 were between close relatives. They weren't just marrying cousins, they were marrying nieces, uncles, and even siblings. Their goal? Keep royal blood pure. The result? Generations of kings growing weaker mentally, physically, and politically. Charles I, also known as Holy Roman Emperor Charles V, ruled the largest empire in Europe. He was brilliant, powerful, and already showing early signs of genetic decay. His jaw hung open involuntarily. His parents were cousins, and his marriage to another cousin only worsened the family's genetic burden. He retired to a monastery, perhaps already suspecting the rot in the royal bloodline. Philip II inherited his father's empire and a deeper genetic curse. He was meticulous to a fault, obsessively micromanaging affairs of state while missing broader threats. He launched brutal religious purges and bankrupted the empire through disastrous wars. Despite 4 marriages, including one to his own niece, his heirs carried increasingly severe genetic defects. Philip III was intellectually stunted and physically weak. His jaw jutted grotesquely, his speech slurred beyond comprehension. Too simple-minded to rule, he handed control to corrupt advisors, accelerating Spain's fall. Yet again, he married a cousin, and their son, Philip IV, would push the bloodline further into collapse. Philip IV ruled for 44 years. But the empire crumbled beneath his feet. Court records show a man paralyzed by depression and paranoia. He married his niece, Mariana of Austria, and their children were born even more deformed. One child survived, Charles II, the genetic equivalent of a child born to siblings, and the final Habsburg king of Spain. Charles II was born with an inbreeding coefficient of 0.254, higher than that of a child of incestuous siblings. He couldn't walk properly. He couldn't speak clearly. He was sterile, confused, and mentally stunted. The court called him El Hechizado, the Bewitched. He died childless in 1700, ending the Spanish Habsburg line. But he wasn't alone in his suffering. Long before the Habsburgs, Egypt's pharaohs practiced royal incest as divine law. They believed their blood was sacred and must not be diluted by mortals. But the result was genetic damage passed from one ruler to the next. Akhenaten, the heretic king, bore signs of extreme genetic disorders: elongated skull, feminized body, and spiritual mania. He married his sister Nefertiti and their daughters. None of their children survived. Tutankhamun, Akhenaten's son with his sister, was born with severe deformities: a clubfoot, a curved spine, a cleft palate, and a fragile immune system. His tomb contained 130 walking sticks, tools of necessity, not ceremony. He married his half-sister. Their 2 children were born dead. He died at 19, ending the dynasty's direct bloodline. When the Greeks took Egypt, the Ptolemies embraced its incest traditions with zeal. Brother married sister for generations to keep Greek blood ruling Egypt. But the dynasty deteriorated: obesity, thyroid disease, paranoia, infertility. Ptolemy VIII was grotesquely obese and mentally unstable. He married his sister and his niece. By Cleopatra VII's time, after 8 generations of sibling marriage, the dynasty was collapsing. Cleopatra turned to Julius Caesar and Mark Antony in a desperate bid to save the bloodline. It failed. When relatives reproduce, recessive genes have nowhere to hide. Each generation, the damage compounds, deformities, mental illness, infertility. Charles II's coefficient of 0.254 meant over 25% of his DNA was identical, genetically equivalent to the child of siblings. These effects were visible long before science explained them. But courts prioritized political strategy over basic human welfare. The monarchs in this story, Charles II, Tutankhamun, Akhenaten, Ptolemy VIII, weren't monsters. They were victims. Used as tools of dynastic ambition, their lives were marked by pain, humiliation, and confusion. Their stories teach us a timeless lesson, that human dignity must never be sacrificed for tradition, bloodline, or power. The mirror never lies. And in its reflection, we don't just see deformed kings, we see the cost of decisions made without compassion.